Hello, everybody. Bore da. Welcome to our Social Business Wales network. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today's session is all about social investment. We're going to have an introduction to it and try and understand better what it is and see how it can help your businesses. So thank you for joining us. We've got some excellent speakers for you. And first of all, a quick intro. If you're not already aware of Social Business Wales, thank you for coming along today. We hold these networks every month to 6 weeks, and it's to help support you and learn and help your businesses. If you're not aware already, we have business consultants all across Wales who can help you start and develop your business with business planning. And we are here. Social Business Wales project is based at Compass, and we're part of a consortium with other support organisations, including WCVA, who are here today as well, and DTA Wales, Social Firms Wales, and Unlimited. So thank you very much for joining us. And the programme is funded by Welsh Government. So moving on to our session today. We're going to hear from three speakers. We've got Olivia here from Good Finance, who are educators in social investment, and they're going to help us understand a bit more about what this financial tool is. And then we're going to hear from Social Investment Cymru, who are one of the investors and the only ones based here in Wales. So they can tell us more about how they work. And then we're really lucky to have an investee. That's the Community Impact Initiative based in Bridgend, and Tristan's going to tell us all about their social enterprise and how they are using social investment. So we'll get all of the talks hopefully done by 1, and then we've got lots of time for questions afterwards. But if anybody does have to rush off at 1 and you have a question, if you could put that in the chat, please, and put a little asterisk or something, or say if you've got to go early, and we'll try and get that answer for you. My colleagues here will try and help us spot those questions, but we'll have lots of time for questions at the end. So, and please don't hold back with them. This is what this is for. So once again, thanks so much for joining us. And before we get on with the presentations today, does anyone have any news they want to announce? Any help that they need? If you've got anything going on that you want to do a shout out about, you can pop it in the chat, or you can tell us about it now. While you have a quick think about that, just to let you know from ourselves, from Social Business Wales, we'll shortly be doing the mapping, which is when normally it's every couple of years, we try and do an analysis of the social business sector, how big it is. So that will be happening very soon. So if you do see a questionnaire or a message, there's an organisation called Wave Hill Consulting who are helping us with that. So that'd be fantastic if you could respond to that for us. And yeah, so there'll also be probably a few questions about a directory that we're building to go alongside that, to try and help really showcase social businesses and help you be on a platform where businesses and councils, local authorities, or corporates can find you if they want to try and trade with you. So that's another thing we're working on. So if you see, I'll pop questions about that in as well. So all of the materials from today's session will be on a Padlet, and I will, or one of my colleagues will put the link to the Padlet in the chat. I think they might have done already. So if you see that, you'll see all the presentations on there. So you don't need to worry about when we'll email them. And the recording of this session will also be on there. I'll do that later today, and then I'll email you all the link. And you'll see lots of links to anything to do with that there today. And also some of your businesses will be on there as well if you sent me your website link. I've tried to put them on there. Okay, well, thank you very much. And I will try and hand over to Olivia now from Good Finance. So welcome, Olivia.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here today. It's really great to come along and see so many organisations on the call as well. I am going to do a quick introduction to what social investment is. I think my colleague Annie is just going to share slides for me. We're having Wi-Fi. We've moved to a new office recently, and the Wi-Fi can be a little bit hit and miss. So I'm going to get Annie just to share screen, and I'll run through this. So My presentation today is very much a warm-up. It's always great to hear. I know Tristan from CII is here to talk a little bit more about what social investment actually looks like in the real world. And I know Alan will be talking a bit about in social investment from their angle. But at Good Finance, we really exist to be a source of information. So we help charities and social enterprises really navigate the world of social investment. So whenever you're exploring finance for your organisation, it's really important to understand where social investment sits, alongside other tools and resources, and be able to make an informed decision for your organisation. We are part funded by Better Society for Capital, part funded by Access, and our website has a whole host of tools, resources, case studies, and more to really help you kind of understand how social investment has been used practically. Just moving on to the next slide. What is social investment? Social investment is the use of repayable finance to help an organisation achieve its social purpose. So we see it sitting, we often refer to it as just one tool in your funding toolkit, and it can sit alongside grants, donations, trading, and other forms of income. And essentially, to really sort of simplify it, when your organisation is making a profit or a surplus, it will then use that profit or surplus to repay a loan. So social investment is really important to remember, is repayable finance and often with interest.
Across the UK.
A very quick video, which hopefully gives a snapshot of what social investment is and some of the ways in which it could be used.
Across the UK, charities and social enterprises like yours are tackling some of society's biggest problems. Maybe you've set up a coffee business to give people the skills to get back into work, or are running a nursery and using the profits to support local parents. Whatever your mission, you'll need money to help with cash flow, to grow your organisation, or to buy an asset like a new building. You might even need finance to kick-start your new venture. And that money could come from traditional grants or donations, or as a loan from your local bank. One option is to get that money from a social investor. That social investor could be an organisation or an individual, and you can borrow their money or offer them shares in your organisation. But what makes a social investor different? Well, they don't just want to see a return on their investment. They want to see their money being used for good, helping you to keep delivering your social mission. Sound good? To see if it's right for you, check out goodfinance.org.uk.
So I mentioned a few minutes ago about social investment being just one tool in that financial toolkit. So often we see organisations, depending on what stage they're at or what their organisation, kind of their structure looks like, using different tools in different ways. So this might be trading, donations, fundraising, contracts, traditional bank lending, grants, and social investment amongst that. And depending on what stage you're at in your organisation's journey or what your organisation's purpose are, you may use a combination of these. So key things to consider when exploring social investment. Firstly, the purpose. What do you need social investment for? So some examples of what we see organisations typically looking at social investment for is when they perhaps need to buy an asset, and maybe they're looking for a bricks and mortar structure in which to run their organisation's activities. It might be that they want to kickstart a new area of their organisation. So perhaps they want to deliver a new programme or a new way of working, and they need additional funding to really get that up and running. It might be to grow and innovate. It could be that you want to build your team, take on more staff, or perhaps expand to another area. Or to maintain cash flow, it could be that your organisation has secured a contract, perhaps with the local authority, but you need to cash flow that in the meantime until that payment comes in. Secondly, really important to consider repayment. So as I mentioned before, social investment is repayable finance. Unfortunately, it does need to be paid back, usually with interest. So it's really important to consider how that will be done. So again, that could be from contracts. It might be through rental income. Maybe you have a premise that you're able to rent out to community organisations or other groups. You might be a membership body, therefore you'd have income through membership fees, or it could be through donations or trading. But really important to consider before you're exploring social investment is, do you have a means of paying that back? and what does that business plan look like. And thirdly, and really importantly, impact. What impact is your organisation looking to create? So you might want to consider what activities you plan to do, what the outcomes of those activities will be, who will benefit from your activities, who is your end user, and how will you measure that? How will you communicate and measure the impact that you're making? And how will this be sustainable in the long run? I think that's what really sets a social investor apart from more traditional investors, in that they really want to understand that the money that they're investing into your organisation is really going to support you in delivering impact. I know from speaking to a lot of organisations that debt can sometimes be something that's a little bit scary to take on, and organisations really want to be assured that a social investor has their best interests at heart. On the Good Finance website, actually 85% of the social investors listed are charities or social enterprises themselves who are delivering impact through the organisations that they're investing in. So there's two main types of social investment. When we talk about social investment, really it's an umbrella term for lots of different products, but largely they will fall under debt and equity. So debt is traditional lending, is traditional in the sense of when an organisation borrows money, it will pay it back, usually at an agreed interest rate over a period of time. And equity is when an organisation sells shares to an investor, so they will then own the percentage of the organisation. And again, which type of social investment you will go down will depend as well on your legal structure. Obviously, if your organisation is not limited with shares, you will tend to go down the debt route. And there are two main types of social investment. So we see organisations, so specialist social investment firms like Social Investment Gymru, other organisations like Resonance, Big Issue Invest, social banks, so the likes of Charity Bank, trusts and foundations, for example, just Roundtree Foundation, Esme Fairburn. And then through individuals, so you might raise social investment through crowdfunding, through community shares, or through angel investors. So when we talk about social investment, I like to kind of use this, this chart to kind of show where it sits. So on one side, we've got philanthropic giving, which is really kind of looking at what the social return is with little to no expectation on any financial return. And on the other side, we've got more traditional investment, which is more preoccupied with the financial return. They want to know, bottom line, is their money going to make is their money going to make a return? And social investment sits somewhere in the middle of this. So considering both financial and social return. So where to begin when exploring social investment? There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of different terminology. There's a lot of things to consider. So on the Good Finance website, we have a whole host of tools and resources, which hopefully will help it make it a little bit easier for you. I know we've got Alan and Carol on the call today who are here to kind of answer questions specifically around their work. On the Good Finance website, we've got a host of things to hopefully help to break down the different jargon around social investment and help you understand if it's a good option for your organisation. So first and foremost, I tend to direct organisations towards the Is It Right For Us tool. So this is a really short diagnostic tool where you can put in some information about your organisation. And essentially it's looking to understand if you have a way of paying back social investment. So it'll give you an indication of whether social investment could be a viable option for your organisation at this point in time. Secondly, we have the investor directory. So you can have a look at the different social investors and funds that are available across the UK, and you can filter by both region and nation. So you can look at any funds or investors specifically operating within Wales and across the wider UK. Then we have a jargon buster. I'm personally not from a financial background. I find coming into kind of the social investment space quite overwhelming with a lot of financial terminology. And the jargon buster really helps to kind of break down a lot of the common terms and references. We are constantly updating this. So if you come across a term, if you're speaking to a social investor and come across a particular term that you're maybe less familiar with and it's not on our jargon buster, let us know. We will add that and hopefully break that down. And then finally, case studies. So real life examples of social investment. I know we'll hear from CII today, but there are lots of other examples of really great organisations across Wales and across the UK delivering social impact. And hopefully that's been scaled by social investment. Just moving on, other bits that Good Finance has. I just wanted to very quickly highlight that we offer free programs to explore social investment a little bit more deeply. So Social Investment Unpicked is a foundation program to really help you unpick what social investment is, how it works, what the different products look like, and how it's applied in real life settings. Legal structures and due diligence are bite-sized programs, really kind of delving into a little bit more of what your legal structure means when you're taking social investment, pros and cons of different legal structures and what you need to consider around the implications that this will have for social investment. And due diligence, really kind of looking forward to that due diligence process of social investment, what sort of things you need to prepare, what social investors will be looking for in terms of your impact, in terms of your business planning and all that sort of stuff. And finally, Investment Committees of the Future is an e-learning program support and hopefully lifting the lid on the decision-making side of investment committees and helping organisations kind of move into decision-making positions if that's what they're interested in. So finally, I will finish off with 7 lessons learned. And these are important things to remember whenever you are considering social investment. These are lessons that have come from years of investees coming to us with feedback of things that they've learned from going through that social investment journey. So firstly, social investment is not benevolent money. It is money that has to be paid back, usually with interest. Secondly, impact matters. This is again really key in considering what impact you're looking to make with social investment, who will benefit from the work that you're doing and how you will communicate that work, what you're going to measure. We always say, don't value what you measure, measure what you value. Every organisation will have different metrics and different ways of communicating their impact. It's about much more than just the money. So social investment is not always a cheaper option for organisations. It's really worth looking around, seeing what options are available to you when you're exploring finance. But with social investment, your social investor is really going to be invested not just from a financial standpoint, but also they really want to understand your organisation. It is much more of a partnership than a traditional bank loan. Your social investor will come along often offering additional support around maybe your business planning, mentoring, or in other ways. And they really want to ensure that your organisation succeeds. So they will really kind of, if they invest into you, it is very much a partnership. Honesty is always the best policy. So often organisations, things can go wrong. None of us saw the pandemic coming. We're going through a cost of living crisis. Social enterprises and charities across the country are finding it really difficult in ways. And if you are going through social investment and you're finding that your organisation is struggling, it's always better to pick up the phone and speak to your social investor as early as possible. If they are aware of any challenges that you're having, they're able to help you. So don't bury your head in the sand if things go wrong. Your social investor is there to help and support you. Why isn't it cheaper if it's social? I mentioned before that social investment may not always be the cheaper option. It's definitely worth exploring kind of different funding options and finding the right option for your organisation. Typically, we often, not always, but sometimes see that interest rates are higher with social investment. And this is for a number of reasons. It will depend where your social investor gets their money from. So if their money is coming from grant funding at source, then they will be able to take more risk and have lower interest rates. But often social investors will be repaying that money from a wholesaler as well, which can mean that it's slightly more expensive. But it also, kind of really going back to the point, it's more than just the money. It is very much a partnership, and often social investors can offer kind of patient terms and will also consider kind of any sort of restructuring and things like that if things do go wrong. Due diligence isn't fun, but it does make your business better. We've spoken to a lot of social investees who've gone through the process of due diligence, which is really a process to understand whether social investment is going to be right for your organisation. And this is a process that you will go through with your social investor if you meet the initial checks and balances. And this process will involve preparing statements, preparing business plans, impact reports, all that sort of stuff. And it can often be quite a difficult process. It's really important to think about how you will allow capacity for yourself to go through this. It's really kind of a risk assessment, and your social investor will really want to understand any gaps, any risks in your organisation before making an investment. I haven't spoken to anyone who's enjoyed it, but everyone has come out saying that it makes their business stronger. They feel better and they know their business much more after going through this. Always takes longer than you think. Finally, number 7, social investment is not a quick fix. It is a process that you will go through, but hopefully in the longer term, it helps you build much better resilience for your organisation over a longer term and deliver even more impact to the people that you serve. And I will stop there. That's very much a whistle-stop introduction to what social investment is, and hopefully a good kind of introduction to the rest of the session. But please do, if you've got any questions, I think Elizabeth, are we doing questions at the end or in the chat?
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you very much for your presentation and that overview of what is social investment. And so if anybody does have any more questions or wants to know a bit more about what it actually means, please pop them in the chat or feel free to ask when we've got time for questions later on now. So now we're going to go over to Alan. So Alan is from Social Investment Cymru, based in WCVA, and they are an investor in social investment. So Alan's going to tell us about how that programme works. So handing over to you now, Alan. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Elizabeth. Can you just tell me, can you see my slides? I've sort of shared screen. I'm hoping it's there.
We can see you. Can't see your slide yet. I don't know if that's just my screen.
No, let's try again then, shall we?
Okay.
Share again.
Yeah, something's changing now. And while we're waiting for that, Alan, actually, I don't know if you want to come back, or if maybe Alan can answer this, or one for Olivia. Do organisations typically need a trading history to access social investment? Maybe that's something you'll cover, Alan, in yours.
It depends who you talk to, I think, is the answer, Elizabeth. With some investors, it is a requirement. It's something like 40% of the business that we do is for startups. So
Great. Okay.
it doesn't matter who you are. We'll talk to anybody.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well, hello, Pab. Alan Jones. I'm responsible for all the repayable stuff that we do here through Social Investment Cymru team at WCVA. So hence why we're talking all things social investment. And the reasons why we actually exist is for market failure. You know, the banks traditionally are not good bedfellows for the voluntary sector. So we're there to try and help things happen, and perhaps deliver some different products to what is traditionally available in the banking sector. That said, the gift of Brexit makes anything other than straight loans right now a little bit more difficult, but watch this space. We're working on it. And what we're trying to be is very much sector-led. You know, we're by the sector for the sector. So working on your behalf. Who are we? Just so we can put sort of faces to names. Currently 4. We're out for recruitment. In fact, we're interviewing tomorrow for to add one to the team. But Carol there is on the call. Karen also based up in North Wales. Shree's down here with me in the southeast. So spread all around the country. And what do we actually offer? Well, we can do loans from anything between 1,000 and 300,000 for almost as long as you want it. I have to admit, we're doing plenty of 25-year loans at the moment. Whether or not they get repaid, I have to admit, is probably not my problem. But there we go. As an interest rate, having said, you know, one of the Olivia's questions was, is it more expensive? I'd challenge you to go and get 7% from any bank at the moment, and sometimes we're less than that. So we're financing a lot of property at Fines at the moment, but we're also doing bridging finance. So if your grant hasn't come in yet and you need the cash, you have to spend the money to be able to evidence that you've spent the money for the grant and claim it. We can provide cash to enable you to do that, and then repay it when the grant comes in. The ordinary sort of cash flow, capacity building stuff, we're not actually profitable yet, but we're going to get there, and we just need that buffer to help us get to that point. And the purchase of any particular assets and basically anything else you can think of. It's one of the hardest questions I get asked is, what do you lend for? A few pictures of what we've done. Ocean-going yachts, not the obvious thing they'd expect in the voluntary sector, but we've done a couple of those. You can make a lot of money with reindeer around about Christmas, although some of the animal charities perhaps are not all that wild, and we might not do that one again as a loan, but in the past we've done them. Top right might be familiar to some, Antistiniog downhill mountain biking in Blaen Festiniog. We've got Seaweed Farm in West Wales that we've got money in, Caramore. We have money in 13 different community pubs at the moment, so we know a fair bit about lending money to community pubs. The one in the middle is Antofuston Rugby Club, the facilities they've got there, and Caerphilly Miners Welfare is the bottom left. So a lot of property we tend to do. It's quite difficult to demonstrate what a cash flow lend looks like, but I have to admit, one of the most satisfying lends we've ever done was actually probably one of the most boring ones, which was for a new computer system, because nobody else would fund it. And we were quite happy to do it. And as far as the organisation that got the funding was concerned, it was game changing for them. It just made their lives a whole heap easier. Not the sexiest lend ever, but really useful actually in terms of what it was. And what's the difference with us as a social lender and being in Wales? Well, particularly local delivery. We are the only fully Welsh-based social investor. Os dych chi'n eisiau popeth yn Gymraeg, well, we've got you covered. A lot of property lending, as I said, most of the traditional lenders will want a loan to value ratio of probably no more than about 70%. So we don't run such things. I've done plenty of 100% property lends. In fact, we've done 130% of the value of the property sometimes, because it needs property improvements doing to it. The question really is, can you afford the repayments, not how valuable is the security? So we're there to take a bit of risk, the risk that the banks won't take. We don't charge you big arrangement fees or anything like that. And once you've got the money, it's fixed for the term of the loan. So whatever happens, you know where you're going to be. We do try to be that if Carlsberg did banks type of approach. There's a question of when, and that bit about, are you investment ready? And importantly here, I think, it's back to this definition of investment that, yes, it does need repaying. And with any investment, you take the money, you do something with it, and that something then earns you more money sufficient that you can repay what the money was given for in the first place, plus a bit of interest. Loans are not for everybody. And an important part of our job actually is convincing people that it's not the right thing for them right now. So we will spend time talking to people to establish that. And it's normally a fairly mutual agreement at the end of the day that once you've actually started to look through the plans and the forecasts, it probably isn't right. But what we are able to do then is identify perchance when it will be right. Also helping people get clarity of what it is they need, how much money they're going to need, what it's going to be for, and where it fits in the jigsaw of the funding that they're going to need. Because more often than not, we're not the only part of what people are going to need not the only people are getting money from to make something happen. So it's that mix. And the timing of the ask then, let's have the conversations early on. We can give you an in-principle decision that you've got the money whilst you go away and get the rest of it. So you've got the confidence then that the money's there waiting for you once you can unlock the rest of it. it's a lot easier to be doing it that way around than leaving us until the very last thing. And because you've not managed to get enough money from maybe a community share offer or from some grants or something like that, then at the very last minute, you're scrabbling around against the clock, trying to get a loan in place to fill the gap. Much rather have the conversations early, agree a figure of up to however much you think it's going to be needed. And if you take that, great. If you don't need it all, don't take it all. And in fact, sometimes, and in a perfect world for you, you don't need any of it because you've managed to raise it through other sources. That's something that we're quite happy to work with. And it's important to be at a point where your forecast makes sense. You know, we will, as Olivia pointed out, I don't know whether it probably isn't fun to have people take the drains up on your business plan and your financial forecasts, but that's what we'll do. Because we want to be comfortable as a lender that you're in a position to pay it back. And actually, at the end of the day, we do find people say, it's been a really useful exercise for us. It's made us understand the business better. And actually having that independent logic check on what we're doing is quite useful to us. My favorite question is, why should I believe your top line? You know, prove to me that those income figures are credible. And that's where most of the challenge lies. So if you're ready to go, what we like to feel is that we can be part of the team and be part of that horrible phrase, that journey of getting to where you need to be in terms of the finance, where we can help and add value to that process. Can we find other sources of finance that might not have come across your radar before? Might there be other ideas that we've seen elsewhere that we can contribute that will actually strengthen the proposal for what you want to do? So it's all about, you know, it's good, as one of the adverts once said, it's good to talk. So very happy to have those, and the earlier we have the conversations, the earlier the better the outcomes for everybody. And the offer is there after this meeting. You know, there's our email, there's our phone number, because those conversations get quite personal quite quickly. And, you know, this sort of public forum probably isn't the place to have those detailed conversations. But if anybody wants them, drop us a line. Be only too pleased to have a chat with you and let you know where we've got to, where you've got to, and how, and if we can help. So, you know, we want a very bespoke approach to make the, as they say, the shape of the money that you need match your cash flow. So I'll leave it there and put the ball in your court and say, well, let us know if we can help. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you, Alan. That was really good overview. Thank you very much. Before we move on to Tristan, there are a couple of questions. I know we're going to take questions at the end, but just because this might be relating to your presentation, there's a question about our investments totally unsecured.
So generally we will take a debenture on the company. So is that actually security or not is another question, but that's there to be in case everything goes horribly wrong. It puts us at the front of a queue when that happens. But to all intents and purposes, that's not really any security. Our basic strap line is a lack of security is not in itself a reason not to lend. So what we generally find is that with a bigger lens where there's property involved, yep, we'll take the property as security if that's available. Where there isn't any security, it won't stop us doing it.
Great, thank you.
Can I just double check? You don't tend to take personal guarantees then?
Never take personal guarantees, Jan.
Brilliant.
Never.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. No, we're not in the business of creating personal liability for any trustees or directors beyond what they have as in their normal course of business as a director or trustee.
Super, thank you.
Yeah. It's not we're not in the business of pursuing people through courts and for stuff like that. That won't happen. And it's probably worth saying at the same time, partly for that reason, we will only lend to incorporated bodies. So if you're not incorporated in one way, shape, or form, we don't like the position where you create personal liability for the members of that organisation. So for that reason alone, if not those of the Consumer Credit Act, which is a whole new can of worms you don't want to get involved in, we require you to be incorporated. We can lend to you, we can agree to lend to you before you're incorporated, but we won't lend until you actually are. And the other question you've got there, Jan, do you need 3 years cash flow forecasts and a business plan to apply? No. You can apply with none of those. At some point, we will need some cash flow forecasts. I think the information that we need is relevant to where you are as a business. So if you are a startup business, certainly having a business plan is a good starting point in that it proves to us that you've had a good think through what you want to do. It also helps us and saves time, not asking lots of stupid questions about, well, what on earth do you do? Because we've no idea. So we can ask more educated questions, and the time that we spend together can be better used, would be my take on that. As far as cash flow forecasts are concerned, generally, I would say 12 months is pretty well a necessity, simply because we want to be comfortable that you've got enough cash. You're not going to run out of cash. If you're a startup business, generally speaking, 2 years is a pretty good idea, because the first year is not going to scare us if that says you're going to lose money in the first year, because that's hardly going to be unusual. But ideally, you're going to be in a position by the end of year one where certainly the later months you're on break even or profit, and then year two is going to show us what a sort of normal year's trading will look like. So certainly 2 years is good in those circumstances. A more mature business, probably 12 months is fine. By the time you get to year three, we're really into crystal ball gazing country, and I'm not sure how much value there is in those unless there's a particular nature of the business that year three is particularly important for some reason.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan. Diolch.
Hey, thank you for those questions. That's really helpful, because I'm sure other people are wondering this as well. So thanks for those. And thank you, Alan. That was great. Okay, so we'll move on then to Tristan's presentation now. So Tristan is from the CII, the Community Impact Initiative, based near Bridgend. So they're an award-winning social enterprise who help bring people together in their community. And interestingly, sounds like through the renovation of property. So Tristan is going to tell us all about that now. And I'm happy to tell you as well that they were recently awarded Social Enterprise of the Year in the Social Business Wales Awards. So we're really delighted to hear a bit more about them. So are you there, Tristan? Is that all okay?
Yeah, ready to go. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks. So would you like to share your presentation with us now?
Let me see if this works.
And apologies, everybody, if you can see my face frozen on there. I don't know why it does that.
Lovely, thank you. Can you hear me and see my screen? Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Lovely. Pnawn pawb. Afternoon, everybody. My name's Tristan. I'm the Chief Executive of the Community Impact Initiative. And I guess I'm going to talk about the practical approach that we had to accessing social investment. We have a social investment now. We're looking to apply for more, probably, Alan, at some point, as Alan knows anyway. So we were established in 2016 as a not-profit social enterprise. So we're a community interest limited by guarantee. As introduced, we won Social Enterprise of the Year at the Social Business Wales Awards at Llandudno last year, which we were really, really pleased about, obviously. We have 13 staff at the moment, and we deliver projects all over South Wales, and in brackets there, Scotland as well. Now we're trialling some work in Scotland as well. which is interesting. So, but the core work of what we do really is we support people from a whole range of different backgrounds across our communities, mainly in South Wales, to improve their health and well-being, build their confidence, develop new skills. And we talk about making positive life improvements. So for everyone we work with, that could be different. Some is employment, for others could be moving into other training or opportunities. And we do that by engaging our communities in meaningful projects, which generally are the regeneration of empty properties. So we purchase properties been empty in our communities for a number of years, in some cases, and then we'll engage with the local community. People live in the area, so we talk to Job Centre, Careers Wales, housing associations, charities, other social enterprises, anyone who supports people in their own local area, and they refer people to us from the ages of 16 to 70 and everything in between, which I'll talk about a bit more in a couple of slides' time. We also have a trading subsidiary called CI Construction. And as of last year, we're funded through, like most social enterprises, a combination of grants, social investment now from last year, property sales, some social rent, and some commercial income. So a bit of a mix of different income streams. There's our vision, mission, and values there. I won't read through all in detail, but our values are important to us, which are teamwork, responsibility, empathy, respect, well-being, and happiness, being happy. So we can embed our values in everything that we do. So to a bit more detail about our projects, we've got a few projects run across South Wales at the moment. Building resilience in communities, which is very much about supporting people to improve their confidence and their well-being, supporting people who are quite far from the labour market or where employment might never be an outcome for them. So it's really about engaging people in community activity and make them feel better in a meaningful manner. Sustaining a legacy, which is again very similar, about bringing empty homes back into use. That's more about engaging people in climate action, learning about energy efficiency, supporting reduction in fuel poverty, as well as building confidence and well-being through those activities. Women Construct Wales, as the name suggests, working with women, quite often from domestic abuse backgrounds, all kinds of backgrounds, where we create environments for women only and support them to build the confidence and learn home maintenance skills, and similar to other projects, allow them to kind of make positive life improvements. All those projects, we support people ranging in age, background, project aspiration, life aspiration. Our projects have become a really successful way of bringing people from different backgrounds together, reducing social isolation and all kinds of kind of barriers. And then the physical aspect of that is that we breathe life into empty spaces. So we purchase empty properties, or we make a partnership with partners who have empty spaces or spaces that need regenerating, and then work with the communities to do that. And we deliver projects all over, really, in those places there. Dundee as well now start this work in Scotland, and we're kind of looking at kind of where that's going to take us next. Each project we have about 20 to 50 people, depending on the kind of speed that people move through our project. For some, they'll join the project and move into employment quite quickly. Others can stay with us for a longer period of time where they have perhaps greater barriers and more support requirements needed. Participants take part in the regeneration process of the properties, and all outcomes are aligned to their own individual needs. So we're not a conveyor belt of qualifications or employment progression stats. It's all about the individual person. How can we support them to make a positive improvement? So we look at kind of future aspirations, project aspirations, and try and combine the two. And there's some smiling, and all these people, as you can probably tell, have been on our projects over the years. And no one's posing; they're always happy. So we started. It's 2018. We started these projects. We had about 500 referrals in that time from people in our communities. We supported between 300 and 400 people to make positive life improvements. There's some numbers there. We support people to achieve some accredited qualifications. People move into employment where they can, or move into further learning or volunteering opportunities. Again, it's really designed around that individual progression and pathway that people need. In that time, we brought about 20 empty spaces back into use. And what's really powerful about projects is it's meaningful. So you reconnect people with their communities, and people take a huge sense of pride from engaging with our projects. They're active, live environments where they might be generally local to them. So I take a huge sense of pride in meeting the people and learning these skills and building the confidence this way. So on to the funding type stuff. So pre-social investment, our funding sources are probably pretty similar to a lot of other social enterprises in Wales. We had some restricted grant funding around our projects. We had some unrestricted grant funding. We had some income from property sales and a small amount from local authorities as well. So it's been a strong intention of ours from day one, and still is, to become fully sustainable without the need for grant funding. Which again, I imagine is an ambition of many social enterprises, and that's kind of foremost in all our kind of objectives moving forward as well. Obviously, when grant funding rises and we can access it, great. But we're trying to make sure we can become sustainable and be around a long time after our 5-year strategy ends going forward. So again, like most social enterprise, looking to diversify our income. So keep and grow what we currently have, but in addition, can we take on can we access other sources of funding and income streams that will help us with our ambitions to become sustainable and grow through in a sustainable manner. So we're looking at social investment, trading income, with the funding that could rise through geographic growth as well as kind of building on the current areas. So social investment. So we spent a long time, like it says there, creating a model of community engagement that really works, and it's proven to be successful. We were really pleased to win Social Enterprise of the Year last year. It felt like the culmination of nearly 10 years of growth and trial and error, and creating something that really works in Wales as a model of engagement and improvement. But obviously, elements of that, quite large elements, are built upon non-sustainable foundations. So looking at grants, which are great. Grants are obviously finite in their nature, and also as good as your product is, there's always other people and other organisations that need funding, need support. So obviously you can't rely on grant funding forever or for a period of time. So we've used a kind of grant funding to create a model that we can apply really to a repayable funding model. So it was taking a long time to kind of get to that point to think, do you know what, we've got something here that we could actually apply a different kind of funding model to. And then, so one of the first areas that we're struggling with was we buy a number of empty properties, and obviously that has a huge impact on our cash flow. It's a lot of money that we don't we should be dipping into reserves and dipping into operational budgets to buy houses, and obviously that the return of that investment will take a long time to be realised due to the time it takes to buy a house, regenerate it, sell it, or whatever we might be doing with it. So we were really conscious of that negative impact of the purchase of properties having on us. So we were researching funding models, social investment. What is it? What does it look like? How can we access it? And that brought us to across Social Investment Cymru. And Ali, who just spoke now. So this started, and this is probably I can't remember now, probably a couple of years ago. I've known Alan for a few years with WCVA links, but in terms of our partnership with Social Investment Cymru, probably a couple of years now. Reached out to Alan, like Alan just said, then get in touch through email or phone. I know he lives now as well, so if he needs his address, let me know. So initially met Alan just to kind of talk about my thoughts around our funding requirements, what we do. And it was a series of informal meetings, like I said, coffees. Nothing was formal in terms of the meetings. Obviously, what we're talking about, was talking about strategic intentions and various things, but quite informal settings, which was really useful for me to waffle some of my thoughts to Alan and him to interpret them and kind of make sense of them, which happened a lot to begin with and still happens now. And what was obvious was the understanding that Social Investment Company had. Like I say there, it became apparent really quickly that they got us. They understood what we were trying to achieve. They could see what we'd done already, and they could see that we had an effective model going. It was obviously believed in what we do. They believed in our social impact, and they understood the challenges that we were facing. I don't think they're universal challenges. We had projects coming to an end because of funding restraints, applying for other funding. It's this kind of cyclical approach to the funding, grant funding, which takes a lot of time. So once Alan and Social Investment Company got us, like I said, understood us and where we were going, from that point it became really easy. Ali mentioned just now about me part of the team. Like, really did, really. We kind of pick up a phone, drop him an email. Can we meet this week for coffee? And it was generally, generally that was okay. And it became a very collaborative process. At the start, I still hadn't nailed down exactly what this looked like, but I knew there was something there in terms of a funding model, how we could repay it through either property sales or rental income with local authorities, whatever it might be. So then it became, well, how can we create something that works? Alan wasn't sat there saying, tell me, and I'll wait until you tell me. It's very much kind of back and forth in terms of, well, let's make something work here in terms of funding model that you can apply to your work. And very much it wasn't all kind of plain sailing. Alan and Social Investment Company very much a critical friend and challenge. They would challenge areas that perhaps weaker, be critical in some parts, but also understand the challenges faced as well. And that kind of led then to a funding application and approval of one of our first social investment loans, which was, like I said, a couple of years ago now. And it's worked really well for us. So like Olivia said, in terms of the focus on social impact, the funding requirements we had kind of came secondary to the social impact. Once we demonstrated our impact and we could demonstrate, the value, that we were measuring our value, it was then, okay, well, how can we continue to fund, not just fund what you do, but how can we tailor something that works? I remember Alan saying once out of terms of repayment, he said, what will work for you? We do not want to put you in any kind of undue pressure by having to repay us in a certain amount or a certain timescale. What will work? So it was flexible terms and still are now. So it was very much about how can we together structure the repayment terms so it doesn't impact your work. We don't, and then it kind of make sure it works for you. So they're very patient and realistic in that way in terms of how we kind of structure this, the funding. It worked for us because the expertise as well. Alan and Carol, they're not a faceless funding team. They're very much open to conversations and thrashing out ideas. So I had advice, expertise, and access to Alan's networks, introductions, different people along the way as well. And it's a very personal process. When you apply for a mortgage on a house or a bank loan, it's a very paper-driven, a black and white, and the computer says no. But with social investment companies, very much, I had really kind of rough ideas, quite loose ideas in some cases. But very much, well, let's get together and let's kind of thrash out, what this idea is. Can we make it work? And our values aligned. CI and social investment company are aligned in terms of values. Personally, myself and Alan get on really well, which really helps. And I felt like we were working towards a common goal and what we're trying to achieve with the funding and our social impact. So to summarize, it's been a really positive experience for us in the time we've been engaging with Alan and his team. It's opened doors to possibilities we hadn't considered. Alan would drop in little kind of little thoughts and ideas during meetings that perhaps kind of turn the light bulbs or maybe think about things a little further down the line. And I feel that this relationship will have a positive impact on our future ambitions because we can establish now a different way of funding, a model on a smaller scale. We're looking now, can we increase that? Can we kind of diversify it slightly? Can we do different things with a similar type of model? And could you proven that it works? So I'm hoping that Social Investment Company are also equally as positive about our relationship as well. So, and like Alan said, I mean, wherever you are on that kind of that funding idea, like for me at the beginning, it was just, can we catch up? Can we meet about this idea I've got? And you might have some, some ideas and some thoughts that kind of further down the line. I think just get in touch with Alan and the team, and they take you through a journey. So I think that was all for me.
That's great. Thank you very much, Tristan. That's really helpful. I think I've got a question here at the moment. I don't know if you can see that. Do you buy properties just to sell on or on behalf of a group who will have use of it?
Yeah, all of that. So originally we, and this is part of our kind of diversification and growth and sustainability. Our original model years ago was very much, due diligence on buying an empty property for whatever reasons, regenerate it, sell it, and use that income to kind of purchase the next to cover the costs of what we just did. And we did that, and by doing that, we can establish we that kind of gave us a foundation to understand how we support our communities, and that evolved massively over time in terms of move from a kind of a skill-driven idea to about well-being, confidence, and positive life improvements. Not a sustainable model though of funding. So now we do different things. We work with local community groups and social enterprises and charities to identify areas of need they have for housing and requirements. In the past, we bought property in that area that works for them, engage some of their participants or service users, and they bought it from us or rented it to them. We work in partnership now with care homes and various things. We're really expanding this approach to what we do with the properties. So all of those at the moment now and more. Yeah.
Great. That's really helpful. Thank you. And Olivia, do you want to read your question out for Tristan?
Yeah, sure. Tristan, I was just wondering, you mentioned that you had grant funding and things before going for social investment, and I was just curious as to how that application process and receiving funding kind of differed between grant funding and social investment.
It differs in the first case. With a lot of grant funders, it's quite a kind of walled off approach. Like send us your idea, your thought out kind of business plan, and we'll say yes or no and give you some feedback. And then you work through the grant process. With Social Investment Cymru, it was very much actually with Social Investment Cymru, I met with Alan, and it was very vague, and probably over a number of meetings, we kind of came to a kind of an idea or a model of funding that worked. And I remember telling Alan, right, should I go away now, write the business plan, write the kind of application? He said, no, I've got enough what I need. I've got what I need here. I was like, oh, that's amazing, because I assumed after all these conversations I'd be kind of doing the whole community benefit questions and the things that take hours. So it was much easier because it was that personal approach. So I spent we had quite a few coffees and met to kind of thrash out the kind of who we are, what we do. So once Arlene was clear with that and understood everything, it's kind of right. Let's kind of make this work between us. So I did find it easier, and I did find that input from Arlene really helpful as well. So it was a very, very different process. Yeah, no, I did find it. It was far more straightforward than grant funding or the ones I've been, have experience of anyway.
Great, thank you very much, Tristan. So,
That's okay.
And thanks for the question, Olivia. It's a really good point. So, there's another question here from Jonathan, and it's an interesting point here, is saying that we're told there's no money, and then it follows down here. I think no money in Wales. Is this the future for all third sector organisations? So I don't know did you want Tristan to answer that one for you, Jonathan, or is it more wider?
I've now been a charity trustee for 10 years in a couple of charities, and we've often debated should we reframe what we do to become social businesses or social enterprises. And I have to say that since Ellind Morgan announced there is no money, we've actually had very productive conversations with our funders and with within the sector in Wales. And in fact, there's been innovation, and I don't feel too downhearted. However, I'm personally very suspicious of social value because I think it's tick boxes that don't actually measure what really matters, and it gives and I'm going to use the word delusion, a delusion that we can show we're making a difference. But I won't raise that as a potential red herring. But I'm just a little bit concerned that whether you and WCVA can see the future where there is going to be even less funding, and whether or not, if you like, we now need to be flexible, we need to be nimble, nuanced, we need to be looking ahead, because perhaps in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, there won't be the kind of funding for the third sector that I do feel we have relied on far too much. Last year, I did feel we were a little bit like a Charles Dickens character saying, please, can we have more? And I welcomed the challenge to say, no, if you're working in the third sector, you need to think differently and do things differently. That's what lies behind my question.
Do you want me to answer that, Elizabeth? Just to pick up, I think, Jonathan, the obvious response in a way is the old plan for the worst, hope for the best. Yeah, I think if you read anything on any of the strictures on what does sustainable funding look like, a good mix of funding in any business is always a good move, and you're not overly reliant on any one form. You don't need me to trot out all the old tropes really in a way, but there's a lot of truth in a lot of that. What does the future look like? It's not going to get any easier, is it? I suspect not hugely. So, the advantage of social investment over grants to an extent is that it can enable you. Well, it's nothing to do with social investment. It's about what you're trying to do as an organisation, and some stuff that you will try to do will fit in the wheelhouse of repayable finance. And if that can be used to make that work and make you a more sustainable organisation and help you generate cash that makes you less reliant on grants on the other side of it, then great. We're always going to be walking that tightrope, I think.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Alan. Great. So it's great to see all your questions coming in. Thank you for these. So Amanda's asking, does the community project come first or the members within the community? So maybe have a think about this one, Tristan. So this is from the Save the Six Bells pub. There's some amazing community members that could do with getting involved in projects and tasks, but we as a community group have yet to purchase our property. Be great to give them a sense of purpose. So it's maybe an idea there. What do you think to that, Tristan?
I think, so the project comes first. I think there's numbers vary, but there are thousands of empty homes in Wales. If you don't have the triggers determine when a property becomes empty, you see, and it's not just the classic boarded up houses. There's so many empty for different reasons. And we're just scratching the surface in terms we've done so far. So we brought 20 spaces back into use. So we tend to we buy a property first. So we'll do a lot of due diligence on properties in terms of why they're empty, what work is needed, how much will it cost. I think your transport links at local community services, and environmental factors to consider. Areas of need compared to others, like we haven't worked in the middle of Cardiff for obvious reasons. So we work in areas where there's a housing need, which is everywhere, where people require kind of support with the confidence and well-being. So once we buy a property, then we engage with that local area. So that Merthyr, for example, we've talked to we make links with every organisation in and around that area. So that's been the do you buy pubs? Not yet. Just try and identify areas and then work with people, and we're trying to spread ourselves too thinly as well because the need is there. So we're trying to do it in a really in a manner that won't mean that we run out of funding because it's expensive what we do, cash flow, various things going on. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely put you in touch with our head of services, Amanda, who could, talk to you about projects anywhere and where we are, and whether we get people travelling quite some distances to come to our projects as well. So I'll let you know. And do you buy pubs? We're not against buying pubs. I'll chat to Alan about the funding available for that. Again, it's we're in a position now where we're trying to determine what kind of comes next. We brought 20 properties back into use. There's thousands. Do we buy a pub, regenerate it, run it as a business? Definitely a good idea. We're looking at care homes now, various things, just where these kind of where these fit on our kind of list of priorities really, and what makes sense to us. But yeah, I know there's some great pubs that have been brought back into use through social investment. Yeah, okay.
Fantastic. Yeah, and it looks like Amanda will get in touch and tell you more about the 6 bells. Look forward to hearing about Amanda. Thank you.
I'll drop my email in the chat now for everybody.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you. Right. Any more questions? Feel free to ask. Got time for them now. And I think a couple more things that came up. For Social Investment Cymru, Alan, would you be able to answer this? We were wondering what type of legal structures, if your application could be restricted in any way by your legal structure. So does it matter which legal structure your organisation has when exploring social investment, was the question.
The short answer, I guess, is no. It needs to be if you like, a recognised social enterprise model. So the important bit is in many ways, is the asset lock in the governing document, so that if at the end the business is wound up, any surplus isn't distributed amongst members or directors. That's the key bit. So any of the recognised, a lot of what we then do is company limited by guarantee with that, but community interest companies, community benefit societies, charitable incorporated organisations, CIOs, it's generally the recognisable ones.
Oh, great, thank you. And the other part of that question, I think, was what happens if an organisation gets into difficulty with repayments?
Talk to us and we'll see what we can do. If you like, I'm a reformed banker, so my natural reaction now is not to call the overdraft in and suddenly do everything that's possible to protect our position. It's more about, okay, what do you need? What can we do? Do we need to stop claiming? Do we need to stop claiming the payments for a bit while you sort yourself out? Yeah. Do we need to stop charging interest for a while we sort yourself out? Ultimately, the important thing on both sides is about service delivery. That's what we're all actually in it for, ultimately. So the important thing is to try and ensure that the longevity of service delivery can happen. And if that means that we've got to sit on our hands in terms of expecting repayments for a period, then that's what we'll do. I think, if you like, if I slightly extreme example, but if I use the fact that when COVID actually hit, we did at that point write out to all our borrowers at the time and said, none of us know what anything that is going to be like here, but if you want us to suspend payments for the next 6 months, then just let us know. And we did, no questions asked. We knew that it was a bigger thing than all of us. So that was our sort of starting point of trying to help the sector through. So yeah, that's, again, it's the response is a bespoke response. What do you need? Can't necessarily promise that I can throw a whole load more money at it, but if we can, but we have done. There are occasions where we have lent more money to help people get out of the problem that they're in. But whether that's a good idea or not is not always the case.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I've got another question here for Tristan about your board, really. Did your board need any convincing to go down the route of social investment?
No, not really. I mean, we were, acutely aware that we were running on non-sustainable funding in terms of the grants, and like it's been brought up, we don't know what's happening in the future, but what I do know is that there'll be less funding There'll be less money in the pot to be shared around. That's quite obvious. So we're really just trying to get ahead of the curve in terms of, look, everything everything we have, everything that we are using funding as a shelf life is finite. So let's make sure that we can look at sustainable approaches. So the social investment element was easy because we discussed with the board, and look, we need to become sustainable. These are models of sustainability, and how can we fund it? So no, it was pretty straightforward once. Because I think sustainability has always been a seriously considered governance topic for us. We've grown from in 10 years now from 1 member staff to 30 member staff. We want to keep going. We have responsibilities, people that we employ as well. Let's make sure that we are sustainable. So the social investment conversation was kind of like the smallest part of it, really.
Elizabeth, it's probably worth saying we do come across that. Not all the time, but there is some of that, and quite often the conversations that we have will be with one person at the organisation, who then has got to go back and report to their board, and you're never quite sure how that filter works. So quite often we've gone to board meetings just to sort of be grilled by the entire board. If there's any questions you've got to ask, we've got nothing to hide. Go back to talk to us. So we'll come and be present in board meetings and have those discussions if that helps everybody gain a proper understanding and puts people's minds at rest.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. I know it looks like some people are having to leave now. Can I just ask you before you go, if you've got 1 second, just to pop in the chat, if you could tell us how you might use the information from today, if it means you might talk to your board or might, look at your plans for the future or do a bit more research. It'd be really helpful for us to know how today's session's been helpful for you. So if you could pop that in the chat, that would be fantastic. And while people are thinking about that, I think there was maybe one more question there. Oh yeah, Tristan. So another question is really about, could you maybe summarize any advice you would pass on to any other social entrepreneurs, social businesses who are considering social investment?
Oh, any advice? I think it does need to be considered. It's not a quick fix, like Olivia said. But I think we were looking at sustainable methods of, we want to make sure that we're a sustainable organisation, and that in itself is something that's a continued topic of conversation at board level, and in management meetings as well. So that foundation of being sustainable led us to social investment, really. So it wasn't like, I've seen social investment, let's try and make it work for us. That was kind of the final part of the journey, really. Actually, this is what will make us help us with our sustainability plans. So I think the advice is that continued funding will disappear. It comes and goes, it's cyclical. How can we become more sustainable? I don't know, does that advice? I've got a clue, but yeah.
No, that's a great summary. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's responding in the chat there. It's just really helpful for us to know how useful this information is for you, so we can tailor the sessions we do in the future. Thank you for that. And keep them coming if you can. Does anyone have any further questions from today? Don't hold back.
I just thought, Elizabeth, that one of the key things that came across was that relationship between the social enterprise or the charity or whoever is looking for social investment with Alan and his team at the WCVA. Obviously, the WCVA, they understand the sector, they understand the legal structures, they understand what people are trying to do, whereas high street banks, they don't quite get it, do they? Sometimes, we Social Business Wales, we try to support clients to set up bank accounts, and they have issues with the bank sometimes, and when they go for loans, there's issues. So having that relationship, having that understanding, I think is key. So that really come across well today. And if people are looking for social investment, then the WCVA and the social investment company team would be a great starting point, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It certainly comes across that communication is very clear and helpful. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And thank you for all of the partners who've helped with today's session, really, with Social Investment Cymru and Good Finance and the CII. Thank you for giving your time, and thank you to you all for coming along in your lunch breaks or whatever it is, if you have a lunch break. So thank you for giving up your time today. We really appreciate it. So we'll keep the session going now. I just know that some people might have to go off, but if anyone's got more questions, please pop them in, and I'm appreciating your feedback here as well. What's useful for you, or if anyone wants to come off mic and just have a chat about anything that they're working on at the moment. I think, Olivia, I know you were gonna go over your 7 points, weren't you? But I think you did that earlier. So is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I know that Lordy, I think, has dropped some links in the chat during the session, so please do. It's helpful. Have a look. It's worth adding. All the tools, resources, information on the Good Finance website is free. It's very much there to help you, I guess, build your knowledge and understanding of social investment. And please do reach out if you've got any questions or anything that the Good Finance team can support with.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we'll stay here for a little longer, but and as I say, later on today we'll finish the recording and get that out to you as soon as I've got it on YouTube. So thank you, everybody.